Today's episode explores a constitutional story many Americans have never heard: the rise and fall of the District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment. Proposed in 1978, expired in 1985, and still shaping conversations about representation in our nation's capital. For generations, the residents of Washington, D.C. paid federal taxes, served in the armed forces, and lived under every federal law, yet had no voting members in Congress. This amendment sought to change that. And now, guiding us through this important chapter of American history, is your host, Pastor David.
This is Voices of Life, a ministry of the Church for Life. I'm Pastor David. Today we explore a constitutional story many Americans have never heard of. A moment when Congress tried to give the people of Washington, D.C. the same voice enjoyed by every other citizen in the nation. It was called the District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment, proposed in 1978 and had an expiration date of 1985. And it's still shaping debates today. For nearly 2 centuries, residents of the District of Columbia lived in a constitutional gap. They paid federal taxes, they served in the armed forces, they were subject to every federal law. But they had no voting representation in Congress, and for most American history, no vote for president. The founders created a federal district under Article 1, Section 8, a capital, not part of any state, governed directly by Congress. Over time, reforms came slowly. In 1961, the 23rd Amendment gave D.C. residents the right to vote for president, and in 1973, Congress passed the Home Rule Act, allowing the district to elect its own mayor and council. But one issue remained: representation. In 1978, Congress proposed a constitutional solution. The amendment said the district would be treated as though if it were a state for 3 purposes: representation in Congress, election of the president and vice president, and participation in an amendment process under Article 5. It would have given the District of Columbia 2 U.S. senators, voting members in the House, full participation in constitutional amendments. But it would not have made Washington, D.C. a state. Congress would still retain authority over the federal district. It was a constitutional compromise, preserving a federal capital while giving its residents the rights enjoyed by every other American. The amendment passed Congress with strong bipartisan support. In the House, 289 to 127, and in the Senate, 67 to 32. On August 22, 1978, it was sent to the states. Like all amendments, it needed 38 states to ratify. Congress placed a 7-year deadline directly into the amendment, meaning it would expire automatically if not ratified by 1985. 16 states ratified the amendment. They were Alabama, Arkansas, California, Delaware, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Ohio, Rhode Island, and West Virginia. No additional states acted before the deadline. The amendment expired on August 22, 1985, 22 states short. Those that argued for the amendment said D.C. residents pay federal taxes, they serve in the armed forces, they are subject to federal laws, they deserve voting representation in Congress. Constitutional amendments should not be affected by millions of Americans who have no voice in ratification. And the proposer preserved the idea of a federal capital without creating a new state. To supporters, this was simply a matter of fairness, a correction too long standing in constitutional silence. Opponents argued that the framers intentionally created a federal district separate from the states. Representation should come only through statehood or constitutional redesign. The district's population did not justify 2 senators. Giving the district a state-like powers while remaining under congressional authority was inconsistent with federalism. Congress could exercise excessive influence over a represented district. The amendment blurred the line between states and federal territories. To opponents, the proposal was constitutionally awkward, neither statehood nor status quo. But remember why the founders created this federal district. It was for all the working parts of the federal government's business. It was for the people that worked or were elected to come to work in Washington, D.C. It was never really intended for a permanent resident or residency in the same way a state was. So that's why it didn't have a governor, or it didn't have a city, didn't have a mayor. And in some cases, the D.C. area worked better when it was under the United States government than its local D.C. government that it's been doing for the last bunch of years. But either way, ratification efforts lost momentum. Many state legislatures took no action. Others were divided over constitutional concerns. And the 7-year deadline prevented prolonged debate. The amendment became one of the few constitutional amendments approved by Congress but never ratified by the states that actually had an expiration date. Today, it remains the most recent proposed amendment ever sent to states. The District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment stands as a reminder of the ongoing struggle for representation in a nation founded on the promise that government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. Whether one supports or opposes the idea, its story invites us to reflect on fairness, federalisms, and the voices of our heart based on our constitutional republic. This has been Voices of Life. Did you know? And I'm Pastor David. May we continue to seek wisdom, justice, and a nation where every voice is heard. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time.
The District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment remains one of the rare proposals approved by Congress, but never ratified by the states. 16 states said yes. 22 more were needed. And when the deadline passed in 1985, the amendment quietly slipped into history. Its story raises enduring questions about representation, fairness, and the voices at the heart of our democracy. Whether one supports or opposes the idea, the debate continues, and the people of the district remain at the center of it. Thank you for joining us on Voices of Life. And thank you to our host, Pastor David, for guiding today's journey through history. May we continue to seek wisdom, justice, and a nation where every voice is heard.